So you've made the commitment to be in an online art course, which is fantastic. Making the commitment means that you're committing to completing the course workload on time to the best of your ability. And of course, I'm here to help you. But the commitment also involves committing to acquiring your own art supplies, which is a bit of a cost. But if you look at the materials section in Schoology, I made some recommendations as to where you can purchase supplies that for more economical prices, like downloading coupons to use at Michael's, for instance, or even shopping at Dollarama. These are good options. We do have an art supply store in Red Deer, Alberta Art and Drafting downtown, but you can also order art supplies on Amazon, of course. And worst case scenario, if you're really in a bind, talk to myself or maybe the art teacher in your building, like if you're a Notre Dame student. But I want to talk to you about paper. Paper is a big deal because you want to use good quality paper for your art projects, your 2D art projects. So try not to use printer paper. In the least, get yourself, and actually not in the least, but you should get one anyway, a sketchbook, because you see some of the projects that you'll do would be nice if you worked a little bit larger than a typical sketchbook size. But there's other assignments that you'll complete, more like drawing or sketching type assignments that you could do in a sketchbook of this size. But other than that, I would encourage you to work on larger paper for like major studio projects. Right over here, I have this art board, which is about a 24 by 24 inch piece of hardboard, 1/4 inch hardboard that I buy just at Home Depot. And I have a studio project piece of paper cut and taped to the artboard. I just want to come in nice and close so that you can see how I've taped it. Half the tape is gripping the paper and half is gripping the board, roughly. So 50-50 all the way around. And before I stuck this tape down, I de-stickified it a little bit by putting it on the table maybe about 8 times and lifting it back up. And that's so that when I'm finished my artwork and I go to remove the tape afterwards, it doesn't tear the paper. So this paper is Mayfair paper. Now, you could buy Mayfair paper at an art store, but you couldn't really buy it at like a Dollarama. But you know what you can get at Dollarama? Something like poster board, and that would be okay to do projects on. And so whether or not you're buying paper at an art supply store or like poster board at Dollarama, it's probably going to come in sheets about this big. And so of course that can be cut down to a more, appropriate working size, something that would fit on, say, an art board or any kind of board that you could tape it to. And I do encourage you to tape your paper to a hard surface because some of the media that you use will get the paper wet, and when paper gets wet, it buckles and folds. But if it's taped down on all 4 edges, as the paper dries, it'll flatten out again. And typically when you're working on a studio project, I will give you sizing recommendations. And so you'll know what size of paper or what size of composition to cut from your large sheet of paper. Here's another great option. If you're going to go to somewhere like Michael's and buy a sketchbook, then why not buy a massive sketchbook? And that way you've got paper that's an appropriate size to use for major studio projects. And again, you could use this paper full size if you have something big enough to tape it to, or you can cut it to be a little bit more smaller, maybe more like something like this, or a little larger. Okay, so that's a really great option too, because then you have all those sheets in a nice pack. And this is actually Bristol board, and it's really good quality art paper. It's actually quite heavy, quite thick, so it would take a lot of different media. Like you could paint on it, you could use graphite, charcoal, ink, whatever. Okay, and then the last thing I want to show you is this little watercolor pad. So some of the projects that you do might involve watercolor, either because I'm telling you to use watercolor, or you might make that a choice because some of the projects might give you some choice of media. So you could buy full-size watercolor sheets at like an art supply store, or you could buy something like a watercolor pad of paper, like a sketchbook. It's like a sketchbook, but it's watercolor paper. And the only thing about this is, I mean, this one's kind of small. So if you were going to do a, large scale painting, say for a studio project, you might want to get a watercolor paper pad that's more like something closer to this size. Okay, so I don't have one to show you, but I'm sure you could find them in sizes larger than this one. And this one, by the way, is the Artist Loft brand, and that's actually a Michaels brand. So Michaels really is a great store to buy art supplies at, because you can download coupons on your phone, like 40% off one product, and that can really help save some money. But they do have like their own line of art supplies along with like brand name art supplies. So in other words, you can save a little bit of money by maybe buying art supplies that aren't like high-end artist quality art supplies. Okay, so that's just a little bit on paper. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and happy art making.